So what we briefly covered in the last two sessions. The first aspect of yoga is the analysis of your own personality, just as we were discussing. Am I predominantly emotional? Am I predominantly intellectual? Or am I balanced in both? Once you do that, you apportion the different yogas according to your temperament. Now, how did we define what spirituality is? What was one of the ways you just, what is spirituality? How do you know if a person is being spiritual? In fact, you can't tell. But if you are being spiritual, what does that mean? Seeking self-knowledge. Yeah. What does the practice actually do? Yes, you are seeking self-knowledge. How do you do it? Yep. Yeah. So what does that do? What's the effect of those things on the personality? All those practices. What does it do to you?
Enlighten you.
Enlighten you. Yep. That's the goal you're achieving. The means to that goal, the practice of yoga, the practice of spirituality is anything we do that reduces ego and egocentric desire. So if what we are doing is reducing egocentric desire, then it is spirituality, then it is yoga. If it's not doing that, then it's not. All right, so a person can be, you talked about the different channels, studying and so on and so forth. If a person is studying, but increasing their desire, then it's not yoga. If a person is going through their bhakti practices, which is what we're going to cover today, and increasing desire, then it's not yoga, it's not spirituality. You know, a person can be meditating and increasing their desires. It's possible. In fact, usually when people get into a meditative practice, that's a lot of what's happening. So anything that we do that reduces our desires is yoga, in whichever form it takes. That's spirituality. So that's the practice of spirituality. So once that happens, then we are prepared. That takes us through different stages of development. The first is we just start to naturally withdraw from the external world. Now that's not a physical withdrawal. What it means is that internally we're less preoccupied with what the external world has to offer. So one of the other ways that we defined spirituality or defined spiritual growth was reducing our dependence upon the external world. Reducing our dependence upon the external world for what? Because, I mean, you've got to eat, right? You can't say, I'm spiritual now, I don't have to eat food. And so when we talk about reducing our dependence on the world, dependence for what? Well, there's also the emotional world and the intellectual world. Think of it this way, what is it that we are all pursuing?
Unbroken happiness.
Unbroken happiness.
Yes.
There it is. So a spiritually mature person is not dependent upon anything that the world has to offer for her unbroken happiness, for her sense of satisfaction, for her sense of well-being, for her identity. You know, a great example very recently came up in one of our classes. A grandmother was holding her newborn grandchild, and she was recounting that time when she first had her own children. And she said she just looked down at this infant and she said, all of a sudden my life just had so much meaning and so much purpose. Right? So it's a beautiful feeling. But what happens is, 18 years later, the child leaves and empty nest syndrome occurs. Empty nest syndrome, I heard someone say this is a different person, but she said, when my children leave, I'm only a mother. So once my children leave, then what am I? I mean, it's a good question. So the point that we're making here is that she has defined herself as a mother. That's her self-definition. What that means is when the children no longer need you for their physical safety and their emotional support and their guidance through life, and when they become self-sufficient, your status as a mother is gone. And if that's how you've defined yourself, then you face an existential crisis. So this is what we're talking about, dependency. We don't depend upon the external world for our sense of well-being, satisfaction, or our self-definition. That comes from within. So this is the effect of the practice. The practice reduces desires, we become more self-sufficient, and then we use that mind that is more calm and that is more introverted, and then we direct it in meditation, through which we gain enlightenment. Okay, so one of the practices is Bhakti Yoga. Right, any specific questions before I move on to this?
What if you want to be a mom? Like, you know, but like for the rest of your life, not necessarily to your own children, but to like other people, you know. Like...
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with choosing a course through life that is in line with your nature. In fact, you should. Yeah, a good example of this is I know a friend of mine at university. Went through 4 years of study, then worked for 3 or 4 years in industry, got married, had a couple of kids, and their roles changed. He stayed at home while she went out to work, and he said, "I've found my niche." All that studying, all that working, no, I'm a stay-at-home dad. This is who I am. He suddenly realized, you know, this is my nature. So if you're a parent, if you're a mum or mom, if that's what you are, be that. And be it to your children, and when they leave home, you, as you say, you become a parent or a mother figure to others. There's nothing wrong with doing that. There's nothing wrong with enjoying that and serving the world in that way. But the moment you depend upon that status for your sense of satisfaction, you're in trouble. Because what if you offer your services as a mother and no one takes it up? How do you know?
Who doesn't want to be taken care of? Some people don't want to be.
But it's possible that it doesn't happen. Okay, there's a great quote in Othello. He's talking about reputation. He says, "It is an idle and most false imposition, oft got without merit and lost without deserving." So, someone starts a rumor which is completely false about you, and your reputation is lost without deserving. That's why no one wants to be taken. Everyone wants to be taken care of, but not by you. Not that person who did that terrible thing. Of course, it's a lie. Yeah, this is just a fantasy to convey the idea that you can't rely on the external world.
No, you have to rely on yourself.
That's right. And so you put that forward. That's my nature to, as you give the example, to be a mum, to be a mother figure, to have that maternal, caring, nourishing, embracing instinct, and take it everywhere I go. There's nothing wrong with doing that. There's nothing wrong with reveling in that experience because you're just functioning according to your nature. The only thing that we're cautioning against is becoming dependent upon that status, right? Because the moment that either you can no longer fulfill that, or others don't want to receive it, then if you lose that status, that's when you face the existential crisis. Say again?
I said, that doesn't sound good.
No, it doesn't sound good. And it's not good. And this is the whole idea of a midlife crisis. You know, a person defined himself as a particular way. I was young, healthy, strong, dynamic. I was creative, and then sort of naturally our energies start to wane over a period of time. People's interest in us starts to wane over a period of time. Who am I? If I'm young and beautiful, that's fantastic, but what happens when I'm in my 50s and I'm not as young and beautiful as I was? If I depended upon that for my sense of stability, for my sense of self, then I will be in trouble. Now, we're not saying don't enjoy it. In fact, it's quite the other way around. We're saying enjoy it while it lasts. But recognize that nothing lasts forever. So while it's there, revel in it, experience it fully. You're a human being, and enjoy your human life. But don't become bound by it. Don't become dependent upon it. And that's where the goal of yoga comes in, because yoga is the reduction of desire, and it is the desire that binds us. You know, if I have a desire for, attention, then when I don't get it, I'm frustrated. I'm unhappy. I'm dependent upon the world, and when the world doesn't feed me what I want, I suffer. So that's the problem. And so the way to that sense of freedom that we're looking for is to break the bonds, break the chains, and the chain is the desire. Then you're free to enjoy whatever you like. And one of the analogies that we often use to describe this, I might have used this example already. You imagine when you're very, very young, you enjoy playing with toys. You seek toys, you want toys. If someone takes your toys away, you suffer. Now you're an adult. Okay, you have a niece or a nephew. Auntie, come play with me. I want to go and play toys with you. Okay, fine. So you get down and you play with toys. You go down in there, you play with the toys, you're free to do so. You even enjoy playing with the toys, but you're not dependent. If all of a sudden the toy game has to stop for whatever reason, you're fine. You get up, you walk away. Unaffected. The child, if they are dragged away from the toy game, they suffer. So you as an adult enjoy the world without being dependent upon it. That's the kind of freedom that we're trying to visualize, understand, and get to through the reduction of desire. One of the paths for which is Bhakti Yoga.